Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Lovely Rita, meet a maid. Nothing can come between us. When it gets dark, I tow your heart away.
Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, some new stunning polls coming in. And remember, the other night, it showed a almost head-to-head matchup, but a slight lead to President Biden in a new Fox poll. It was the first one that came out since October. And now another new poll that has just come out in the last hour or so, and it puts that one on its tailspin. Get this. Former President Donald Trump, according to Rasmussen reports, is leading President Biden in this poll by 10 points nationally in the 2024 White House race. That is a big, big deal. And that is when it is a 5-person race. That includes, obviously, a number of these third-party candidates like RFK Jr. and also Cornel West and a few others. If it is just a head-to-head matchup, according to Rasmussen reports, Trump is up 9 percentage points, 49%, with President Biden getting 40%. 7% of voters saying that they would vote for some other candidate, and 4% saying they are undecided. So that is an enormous lead for President Trump. It also comes as a whole bunch of new details are coming out about the money coming in and supporting President Trump in a big, big, big way. In the last month or so, he has almost triple in the money haul that President Biden had. And if you look at some of the swing states, there has also been great news for President Trump. In 7 of the 8 swing states, he is either winning, and in the 8th one, he's tied, which is an incredible, incredible moment. You could tell if you just look at where President Trump is going, too. He sees that a number of these states are potentially going his way. Can you imagine if he wins Pennsylvania? He's planning on being in Pennsylvania this weekend. Then, of course, he's got the big debate next week. That's going to be on Thursday night. And then on Friday, he is going to Virginia, where he is also seeing polls that are showing he is potentially in play there. A candidate on the GOP side has not won Virginia in some time, in decades, but Trump appears to be in striking distance. So that's a real biggie. And also, if you look at the state of New York, it depends on the poll, but in some of the state polls, you will see that he is within single digits. In one poll, he's about 8 percentage points. There's another one where he's about 4-6 percentage points. That's in blue, 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 blue New York. That is a place where normally you would never hear the words a nail biter when it comes to the presidential race, just because it is so heavily Democratic. But it shows that people are gravitating towards the former president. Remember, he did the big Bronx rally, and that is a stunning move. If he comes close in New York, if he won New York, wow, that would be an enormous, enormous achievement. But it also, the fact that the races are tightening so much in places like that is certainly a sign all over the country that he is gaining momentum. And again, this big new poll coming in from Rasmussen showing that if it's a 5-person race at this point, according to Rasmussen, and again, polls change as race changes and things morph in the trade. You know, there's many, 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 many months now until Election Day. It's a lifetime. It's 20 lifetimes between now and Election Day. But the momentum clearly seems to be in the favor of President Donald Trump. And of course, all eyes on what is going to happen in the debate. There are a number of Democratic strategists out there who are saying that this is make or break the debate for President Joe Biden. Because if he has a lousy appearance at the debate, things are not going to be very good at all for his campaign that seems to be on life support right now. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you can tell that clearly the Democrats really do realize that things are in trouble. And that additionally, through all of this, you can tell that they know that they are having problems with the race and that they're losing momentum. And you could see it all over the place. That's why they are doing the lawfare. That's why they are continuing to look and talk about different legal options against former President Trump. And in fact, just today, the DA, Alvin Braggs in New York, he came around and said, you know what? We need to keep that gag order in place against President Trump. Even though the New York case is over, even though it's unprecedented for someone not only to have a gag order like this, but to have it continue in place after the case has been completed and he's about to debate and he's the leading candidate in the United States for president, could potentially be the next president of the United States. And he's going to be gagged while he is doing a debate where he can only answer certain things. And we're also hearing that in the middle of all this, that Joe Biden is going to keep hitting on the fact, convicted felon and January 6th. He's going to throw all this stuff at President Trump. And what, he's not supposed to respond? I mean, this is just sheer lunacy. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Well, one group where Alvin Braggs seems to be going soft on, in addition to repeat offenders in New York, because they just seem to get a slap on the wrist, is now the anti-Israel protesters that were out there at Columbia University. Remember, at Hamilton Hall in April, and we were live during a lot of the stuff when it was happening, because remember, it was happening in the nighttime hours. And suddenly all these students and also outside agitators were barricading themselves in at Hamilton Hall. And some of them had makeshift weapons. They were shouting really horrible, vile things at Jewish students. That's what started it. They were doing protests at first, but first shouting a lot of very derogatory, horrible things at Jewish students there. They had the encampment, and then they decided to take it one step further. And there were a number of janitors, custodians there that felt that they were almost kidnapped, that they were held against their will, that they were barricaded in and couldn't go anywhere and were being threatened by these students that were holed up. Remember, they didn't want to leave. They even put I think it was a bucket down saying, hey, we need food or we need water. We need this. And they didn't want to leave. And the only way they finally did leave was, thank goodness, the NYPD came in with some of their vehicles and suddenly paid them a surprise visit. That wasn't such a surprise because obviously they were working up to it for a few days. But these kids and these outside agitators had the list of demands. It was all these vile, horrible things. And again, they were hunkered down on property, making threats, barricading in. You could say kidnapping. You could certainly say obstruction and destruction of property. There are a lot of charges that you could level against these people. And they're not like kids. They were college students. Some of them grad students. Some of them not even part of the school. They just wanted to wreak havoc and work with the students to create chaos on many U.S. campuses. And you also think about the way things went down on Columbia University campus. It inspired so many of these other campuses across the country because they were like, wow, look at this. Columbia is doing the encampment. Oh, wow, look, they're barricading themselves in. And it started this trend really across America in many ways. So they are very, very responsible, first of all, for letting things get so out of control that they even got to the point where they could barricade themselves in. And because it got so bad, it was such a lesson to so many other schools that you can't let it get out of control. learn from the lessons and the mistakes made, more importantly, at Columbia University. So what happened? A whole bunch of people were arrested and on some low-level charges. Some of them should have been charged a lot higher to begin with, but they were arrested on low-level charges. And it was downright scary at the time. I mean, it was dangerous and it was scary. And many Jewish students were fearful for their lives. So was the custodian, as I mentioned. And here is one of the custodians, Columbia custodian Mario Torres. He was on a podcast describing what happened in the building that he saw firsthand. Take a listen.
First, they pulled the alarm because the alarm was ringing. And then they put tables and chairs to block it. Like they stuffed that elevator with furniture. So it was done. So I couldn't go down. I basically managed to, someone was able to calm me down and say, look, I'm going to let you out. We're going to let you out. We're going to let you out. Just calm down. I was freaking out. At that point, I'm thinking about my family. Right?
Why did you freak out?
Why did I freak out? How was I going to get out? Through the window? No. And look, and I'm glad I did because, I know the cops went in there, and there was a story about a cop, discharging his firearm. Let's say they stormed in early. They wouldn't know who we are. It's just scary just thinking that you're locked in with a bunch of crazies, what I want to get out. That's the only thing you're thinking of is getting out.
And the crazies were chanting, "Long live Hamas. We love Hamas. October 7th. Let's do it all over again." If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what does. And guess what's happened now? Alvin Braggs has decided to drop charges against nearly all of the anti-Israel protesters. Guess what? They're walking scot-free. He dismissed cases against 31 of the 46 people that were charged. And everyone's wondering, how could that be? I thought this is the guy who couldn't wait to charge President Trump 34 felony counts for a business ledger misentry. And that guy, the president, might even be sentenced to some jail time on July 11th. And then you got these people who are barricaded in and they're tiptoeing through the tulips tonight because Alvin Braggs gave them a ride on Easy Pass. Somehow that doesn't seem fair. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll take your calls when we come back.
The Rita Cosby Show.
Long Island is more exciting than ever at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel. Get ready to zoom into some serious cash with Zoom Ball every Wednesday in June. Win up to $500,000. 1 point equals 1 entry. 2 lucky winners will be drawn at the top of every hour from 1 to 5 p.m. to play Zoom Ball. Discover the excitement at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel.
If gambling is a problem for you or someone, please call the 24-hour toll-free helpline at 877-8-HOPE or text NY.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
There's a new way to order food, groceries, clothing, and household products that also benefits charity. The Champions Marketplace app sends 10% of the purchase price directly to a participating charity of your choice. Orders are fulfilled through local small businesses. Everybody wins. Same-day delivery from your community. The Champions Marketplace. Coming soon to iOS and Android app stores. The Champions Marketplace. Shop like a champion. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
So let me get this straight. If your last name is Trump, well, they'll throw the book at you in New York. But if you barricade yourself in at a university and trap in custodians and make threats of violence and a whole bunch of other stuff, well, then you have nothing to worry about. That is a sad testament to New York justice. And many people are, quote, calling it turnstile justice. And some Jewish groups, Michael Nussbaum, he's a 25-year member of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, says of the fact that Manhattan DA Alvin Braggs has decided to drop nearly all the cases from Columbia University's barricaded in protest. He calls it, quote, a green light for chaos, a green light for destroying property. And I agree. They have basically said you can just keep on going and nothing's going to happen to you if maybe you're well connected or maybe you're going to vote Democrat. Maybe that's what this is all about. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Chris in Ohio. Chris, your thoughts.
Hey, Rita. Listen to you. I was telling your producer, I listen to you every Friday night on my way home from work.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so happy that I'm keeping you company. That's great, Chris.
Oh, I love the show. You know, I spent a lot of time in New York and New Jersey, and New Yorkers kind of appreciate me because I'm right to the point. What you just said was kind of what I was going to get into. This is a green light. And this let's call this for what it is. This is not just, you know, protesting the Israeli government. These are Jew haters. These are people that despise Jews. These are people that applauded what happened last October. They want more of it. You can't argue that point when you are siding with a murderous terroristic group. This is, to me, these are the new brown shirts. These people that did this at Columbia, and there's a lot more of them around the country. And you basically greenlight in the city of New York that you can intimidate people to the point where they can't go to class because of who or what religion they are or what ethnicity they are. Let's call it for what it is. And this is a disgrace. For Bragg to sit up there and say he doesn't have enough evidence.
Yeah, can you believe that? That's what he's claiming. You're right, that there's not enough evidence, even though there's security footage. I mean, give me a break. And by the way, he had to process them. So I'm sure when they did the processing of them and they did the initial arrests, they had to give them summons. You have to get a name from somebody for a summons. You got to get an address. You got to get a phone number. But I guess he somehow couldn't ID them. Do you buy that? That's hogwash, Chris.
Absolutely not. They ID'd the Jan Sixers. They've ID'd the Proud Boys. I mean, this is absolutely in-your-face selective prosecution. And if you do not toe the new government line, they come after you. They're putting it in your face. And as far as Bragg goes, he unconstitutionally gags Trump. They still can't even tell me, Rita, what the crime was.
I know. And he's got a debate next week. I mean, Chris, it's shocking to me. I never thought I'd be in America where now they're about to have the first debate with the two candidates, of course, with Trump and Biden. And Biden is apparently preparing to unleash all this, felony, this Trump, felony, that Trump. And what Trump can't respond in a certain way. I mean, that's how un-American is sort of the phrase I think of. Chris, real quick, your thoughts.
I mean, un-American? No, this is anti-American. And these people despise this nation and its founding. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, really sad. You know what? I'm telling you what they are doing to the Constitution, because it's not just how they handled Trump. It's how they're handling an opponent. And it speaks volumes of what their standards are. Really shocking. Thank you, Chris.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment is sponsored by the great GoyaCares.com, because you are a precious gift from God. Be sure to check out GoyaCares.com. They do so much to combat human trafficking and also instill the great values of faith and family. Check out GoyaCares.com. And this story coming from Maine, where a police officer was walking into a fitness club when a man suffered cardiac arrest and fell off an elliptical machine. Officer Dong, who is also a National Guard member, helped save the life of a man at the gym. It was right when he was walking in that the officer found out that a man had fallen off the machine and he slammed his head on the ground. And he ran over when somebody said that this man desperately needed help. The officer said, quote, "I felt a pulse, but I didn't feel anything else." Then the trainer in there came over for help. And they realized that then they did not have a pulse at that moment. So he said, we put the AED, automated external defibrillator, on him, and then we followed the instructions. The machine went through 2 cycles of compressions, and it prompted Dong, who is an airman first class with the New Hampshire National Guard, it prompted him to administer 2 shocks. And then fire department medics also arrived on the scene. Once they were there, they gave the man a 3rd shock before rushing him to a local hospital. The man was treated for cardiac arrest and is said to make a full recovery. Amazing work on behalf of this officer who acted quickly and responded, and then also the medics who came in. Well, the chief of police there in the area said, quote, "Officer Dong's ability and willingness to initiate emergency care immediately saved this man's life." It goes without saying that Airman Dong came to the needs of a complete stranger in his gravest hour, and for that, we are grateful. And the man is alive. What a great and powerful story, and an incredible just testimony to the great work of our men and women in blue, and in this case, also a member of the military as well. Well, we know that many folks were called in at Columbia University when these protests were escalating. And one of the worst cases is when Columbia University, those students and also the outside agitators were all banding together. And remember, they kind of like suddenly had all the same signs and all the same tents. Again, you got to wonder a lot of the funding coming from some of these groups outside that are funding a lot of these protests. And I don't see these protests going away anytime soon, too. I mean, it is about to head into the summer months. Now, remember, a lot of the students, they go out there and protest in the summer. There's also, of course, the different conventions. There's the Republican convention. Then there's the Democratic convention. And these groups continue to follow, especially, it seems like, the Democratic Party. Wherever they go, they're trying to get the attention of the president and everybody else. And guess what? I am sure when they go to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention, there will definitely be protests. And because these protests continue to spark all over the country, you got to put these people in check. You got to send a message. And that's what we should have done to begin with. Law enforcement, and especially starting with school leaders, they should have clamped down immediately on these people and shouldn't have even let it get to the point where they were holed up at Hamilton Hall in Columbia University in New York. It was a sad, pathetic day. Thank goodness law enforcement finally, when they were told you can come in because the school just couldn't handle it anymore, finally they came in and they cleaned it up almost within minutes. Bravo to them. And they arrested people. But now we're finding out that Alvin Braggs is dropping the charges because guess what? Their last name isn't Trump. Their last name was Trump. They'd never see the light of day. They'd be like solitary confinement now. Can you imagine what he does to Trump for business ledger entries? Can you imagine if Trump was like holed up at Columbia Hall? You know, they'd like put him on a desert island and say, you're never able to see anybody again. This is the double standards are so transparent to me. And how could we forget just how bad it was there at Columbia University, especially in April? And who knows what's going to happen again, because they're certainly going to feel emboldened now that they got off with a slap on the wrist, not even that. And here are some of the protesters and some of the things that they were chanting there at Columbia University.
Free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! And we will free Palestine! We will free Palestine!
And those are some of the nicer things that were chanted, as opposed to, let's do October 7th all over again. I'd say that's a threat, especially if you're a Jewish student on campus. And there were a number of Jewish students on campus. I wonder how many want to go back to Columbia University after they saw the way that it was handled so dismally and pathetically by Columbia leadership. And here is one of the students there, one of the Jewish students, describing just how bad it was and probably still is at Columbia University.
The unfortunate reality is that Columbia University is not safe right now, and it's especially not safe for its Jewish students. What we're seeing, unfortunately, isn't very surprising. You know, we're witnessing really the culmination of 6 months of anti-Semitism that is being reinforced by a complete lack of leadership, even despite several warnings, lawsuits, and a congressional investigation. This is really, it's inevitable, and it is the result of seething anti-Semitism, inaction, and gaslighting from our leadership.
Yeah, and it's also just complete ignorance, complete selective prosecution. Why are they not throwing the book at these people? We were just talking about the fact that Alvin Bragg actually said, in an age where you're able to get the people, remember, they had to give them summons. They did take them, remember, in the paddy wagon, the buses, remember that night after the vehicle showed up, the police vehicle that showed up. Remember, it went to the window and said, "Time's up, guys. We're clearing you out." And it only took them a few minutes. And then they put them all on the bus and they went to the police station. They got their name. They got their number. They filled out summons forms. So they had to be authenticated. And now, isn't it interesting that for some reason, when next year Alvin Bragg is up for election and he is clearly coddling many progressives in New York, that, boy, for some reason, we just can't ID these people. There were masks on some of them. Yeah, that does make it hard. But if you have their name and number, I guess it's not that hard. And believe me, in this day and age, and, Chris was just saying this from Ohio, think about January 6th. If you sneezed near the Capitol on January 6th, suddenly there was somebody who knocked on your door or raided your home at the wee hours of the morning. If you went to a restaurant, if you went to Dick's Sporting Goods, remember? If you went to the Bass Pro Shops, those were all like the trigger, remember? Sorry, I was just getting a mackerel hook. I just was getting something for my canoe. Oh, no. Sorry, you were in Washington, D.C. But if you were there, suddenly they found you. There were tens of thousands of people, but they found you. They got you. You're having rice patties, and water for the next 100 years. We're sorry. I know you're a grandmother of 100. Good luck. But if you were in Columbia Hall during this horrible anti-Semitic, anti-American, vile protest where they're barricading in and destroying property, that's an easy one. If you're a law enforcement, that's a 5-second see ya. Not only just because they did it, but to send a message to other students across the country. And what has happened? No. In Alvin Bragg's twisted system of justice, Alvin Bragg is allowing these people to walk free. That is a disgrace. And here is Paul Morrow. He's an attorney, also former longtime lawman on Fox News. And listen to what he says he thinks is behind this move by Bragg.
So this thing was completely undercharged. First of all, if that were true, his response, that Bragg's response, how did we make cases for all of those decades before video was ubiquitous? All right? I mean, come on. Now, you needed video to make cases on these guys? Give me a break. Number two, they were charged with trespass violation, right? That's just a summons. Well, that means you got their names. So He's arguing that, oh, you know what, we don't know who they were because of the mask. They all got summonses. The cops keep a copy of that. But I think this was planned, and here's why. They should have charged trespass misdemeanor, and they could have done so. I was talking about it at the time. You know why they didn't? Because they would have been fingerprinted. Then they're in the system. We know who they are. You can identify them going forward. They didn't do that. Columbia should have insisted on that, and they might have cut a deal here. I don't know what happened, but they were undercharged. And you know what? I think it's no accident that the parents of a lot of these kids are the donor class in this town. And Bragg's running next year. So do the math.
All about elections, all about coddling progressives. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, your thoughts about all this. It's disgraceful.
It is, Rita. And, you know, the Jewish people are a very smart group of people, and quite often they are very successful when it comes to being litigious. So, if possible, I think they should find shrewd attorneys that will take this all the way to the Supreme Court, and because their civil rights were violated because they were being attacked for being Jewish, and I hope they win hundreds of millions of dollars from these universities, and that will send a very clear message to these other campuses throughout the entire country.
You know, you bring up a good point about all the federal civil rights violations, because you think about, Jacqueline, you know, if these were African-American students, can you imagine if this was happening on, you know, an HBCU school, say like Howard University, right? Which is, you know, a black college, historically black college, has had some incredible graduates, by the way, out of Howard University. And can you imagine if suddenly a group shows up on Howard University and starts protesting and says, you know, let's get rid of all the black people? Guess what? I bet you if that happened in New York, that would last about 2 seconds under Alvin Bragg. And those people would still be jailed today. So how could you not protect the Jewish people? It is an issue of civil rights. And I agree. I actually think they have a darn good federal civil rights case. And I think they should sue, because so far it seems like the only accountability has been that a number of some of these presidents of universities have been removed, you know, after their dismal performances on Capitol Hill. But that's about it. I haven't really seen any other sort of accountability. Have you? Where's the accountability, Jacqueline?
You know, there isn't. And I think with the number of students all across the country that have been affected by this, they could probably bankrupt these universities, even though they have quite substantial endowments. If each one of them would be awarded several $million, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars all across the country by the number of students that were affected by this, I think they'd put a pretty good dent in the endowment of these universities. And I think they would start to change their tolerance of these Hamas supporters.
Yeah. You know what? Money does talk. And we've already seen, like, in some universities where some of the big supporters have pulled money out because they are just disgusted, you know, and some of them are Jewish, some of them are not, you know. And listen, I'm not Jewish, but I find what happened at Columbia University vile and disgusting. What they were saying was reprehensible. It's hate-filled. And every American should care about it. It's just disgusting. And if you don't clamp down on bad behavior, it's like a child. If you don't rein in a child's bad behavior, they're going to get worse. They're going to keep doing it. They're going to feel emboldened. And guess what? Things are going to get bad as the election is getting closer. But that's what this is all about. I've said it before, that there is a two-state solution for President Biden and many of his supporters, and it's Minnesota and Michigan. And they don't want to inflame Minnesota. They don't want to inflame Michigan. They don't want to inflame the young vote. They're trying to do anything they can to keep those people, even if they're a small group of these anti-Israel protesters, they're loud and they're vocal, and he doesn't want to offend them. And that's why I believe that the president and many of these others have not clamped down. And maybe that is the reasoning behind Alvin Bragg and his strategy, as you heard from Paul Morrow. We're going to continue with your calls, everybody, after the break. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
It's The Rita Cosby Show. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on The Rita Cosby Show, some more heinous migrant crimes taking over America. We're going to talk about some of the latest cases and how the border is absolutely going to be a huge topic in the next presidential race. Also, both sides are preparing for what some are describing as a make or break moment, especially for President Biden. They're saying if he doesn't do a good job, well, his candidacy is kaput and he will be a one-termer. I agree. I think the stakes really are high on President Biden. If he can't deliver, if he can't stand there for 90 minutes and he's out of pocket now. Everybody says he's in Camp David preparing for the big debate on Thursday, doing a lot of drills and questions, not drills like military drills, like verbal drills. But he is doing a lot of questioning, a lot of prep. President Trump, on the other hand, is just out on the campaign trail talking to a lot of people. That is the way that he is preparing for the debate. But it just shows that President Biden really feels that he has to do well in this debate or else. And he understands how high the stakes are. And he understands there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are watching to see how he will do, because he must indeed do well, not just obviously to beat Trump, because that's his goal, obviously, but to also please those in the party. And there's a number of them now that are saying he is the wrong man to run for a second term. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Jack in New York. Jack, your thoughts about Alvin Bragg and his double standard injustice.
Rita, there's a special place in hell for Alvin Bragg and for that animal who raped that 13-year-old girl. And by the way, there's a special place in hell for Donald Sutherland. He dropped dead yesterday. Did you know that he and Jane Fonda, the Putana, they spat on American troops coming back from Vietnam, and his own wife, Donald Sutherland's wife, bought hand grenades for the Black Panthers to kill cops.
Oh, wow. By the way, hang on a second. Jack, I feel like, first off, I was never impressed by, I thought it was despicable what Jane Fonda did during Vietnam and some of the ways that she was, against the troops and against America. I agree with you on some of those actions and her there going visiting and all the things. I was not aware of any of the things with Donald Sutherland and what you're just saying here. But certainly, I don't wish anybody to burn in hell. But I hear your frustration, because that's obviously not a flattering portrait, if indeed that is in his background. Jack, thank you very much. Let's go to Jerry in New Jersey. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I hope the Jewish people realize that they're being taken for granted in a similar way that white Christian straight people who are Democrats have been taken for granted for the last, say, 15 years since the Obama administration, where they use their wokeness to shut everybody up and say you're a racist if you say something and you're a homophobe if you say something. So this is what's going on now. They're like, we have the Jewish vote locked down pretty good. Let's get the new Middle Eastern vote and the Muslim vote, and let's assure we have some swing state wins. We all know that's what's going on. So it's up to the Jewish people to come out and say, that's it. We're going to vote Republican. We're going to vote for Donald Trump. And if they don't do it, then they're on a suicide mission as far as the state of Israel goes, and they're even going to be totally a second-class citizen in their own country here in the U.S.
You know, Jerry, I hear you because what Jewish residents now would say, God, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden after the way he has handled Israel and sold Israel under the bus and the way he has placated some of these protesters. I agree with you. I really do think it's important that Jewish citizens who certainly care about protecting Israel and protecting America's interests in the Middle East and freedom, I believe they do got to come out for Trump.
There's a new way to order food, groceries, clothing, and household products that also benefits charity. The Champions Marketplace app sends 10% of the purchase price directly to a participating charity of your choice. Orders are fulfilled through local small businesses. Everybody wins. Same-day delivery from your community. The Champions Marketplace. Coming soon to iOS and Android app stores. The Champions Marketplace. Shop like a champion.